What's the difference between being a professional or being an amateur? Stay tuned. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And before I even begin, I need to give a big shout out to a gentleman named Jerry Rumer, who wrote an article called 4 Things the Pros Do Differently Than the Amateurs. The beliefs, habits, thought models that set high achievers apart. Once again, his name is Jerry, J-A-R-I, Rumer. Very good article. It got me thinking. I'm going to take some of the stuff from his article and also, of course, add some of my own tidbits. All right? First thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about my high school physics teacher. What the heck has that got to do with the price of tea in China? Well, let's talk about my high school physics teacher. There are 2 things that I have retained from taking physics my senior year in high school. Neither one of them has anything to do with physics or science, so let me tell you what they are. They're kind of fun. The first one is this class started at, I think, 8:15 in the morning. It was the very first class of the day. And, you know, when you're in high school, you always show up on time. You get the bus, you walk to school, you get a ride, whatever. You're always on time. Well, this particular class started, once again, early every single morning, Monday through Friday. And one day, one of the kids in the class, Nelson Wood, who became a dentist and most recently, I'm sorry to say, passed away, a good friend of mine, he would, keep in mind this high school was pretty big, about 2,400 kids in it, so it was a pretty big high school area-wise. The way he would get around the school was he had a unicycle. So he would ride around the halls with his unicycle. Well, one day, he came into the class at 9 o'clock, a full 45 minutes late. He opens the door, he walks in, he's carrying his unicycle, and he's got grease all over both of his hands. Of course, when somebody walks in at that time, what does everybody in the classroom do? They look over to see what's going on, right? So we all looked over to see what's going on, and the teacher did too, and everybody looks at him, and he's got the grease on his hands, and he says, "I got a flat tire. I'm sorry, I'm late." All right, and people started laughing, and they continued to look at him, and I remember he very famously said, "Hey, quit looking at me, will ya?" All right, that's memory number 1 of that physics class. The other memory from that physics class, physics teacher actually, was I was a senior. I was the captain of the basketball team, and we were playing the second game of the year. I think it was the very first home game. And so there was a lot of publicity, you know, come see your team play, so on and so forth. And on this particular team, I and another gentleman named Larry were the only returning, quote-unquote, players that played the previous year. Okay, I mean, there were other guys on the team, but they didn't see much action. So we had kind of a inexperienced team, because basketball's made up of 5 guys, 2 of them had played, and 3 hadn't. So it was a tough situation. And in this particular game, Larry, who was our best scorer, our best player, got into foul trouble real early in the game. Like, he got 4 fouls in the 3 fouls in the first quarter, and then he put him in the second quarter. He got another foul. So he's not playing much. He's sitting on the bench. And so here I am. I'm the only experienced guy and captain of the team. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to take this on my back. And I started calling plays for myself. And I kept calling the same play over and over and over again, where I would spread everybody out. I'd have the ball in the middle of the floor, and I'm going one-on-one against my defender. And I was not a particularly good scorer per se, but this particular day I started off awful. In fact, one of the assistant coaches said, "Will you get him out of here? He's killing us," all right, referencing me. But the head coach said, "No, we got to leave him in there." And then I started to pick up in the second quarter, and I caught fire. I couldn't miss. At the end of the game, I had 32 points. which was the highest number of points. I never even scored like in double figures hardly. All right, I had 32 points in this game. We lost, all right, but it was like the biggest game scoring wise I had in my entire career. The coach called me up that night and said, you know, you had a really good game. Enjoy it because it's never going to happen again, which kind of deflated the heck out of me. Why would a coach say that? But he wasn't such a great coach, nor was I such a great player. But the point is, he said that to me. So where does the physics teacher come into play? She went to the game. It was the only game that she went to the entire year. And so when she went to that game, the next day when I came into class, she said, wow, you're really good. And so she had that respect for me for the entire year as a basketball player. It was kind of unfortunate for me that she didn't have much respect for me as a physics student because I got a C+ in the course, all right? But at least I had a respect as a basketball player. My point is, I had that one game where I played very, very well offensively, but that was essentially the highlight of my entire career, that one game. What's my point here? We're talking about the difference between pros and amateurs. I heard Jeff Van Gundy, no less an authority than Jeff Van Gundy, who is a color man for the NBA in the games, talking about, you know, greatness is all about consistency. And I thought to myself, wow, boy, is he right. And I was planning on doing this particular video on pros versus amateurs anyway, and the very first thing that's there, the difference between a pro and an amateur, are the pros are consistent, amateurs aren't. Think about that. If there's one thing that sets the pros apart from the amateurs, it's their level of consistency. Anyone can put in the work on the days where they feel motivated and inspired, and everything seems to flow easily. But what about those days where you don't feel motivated, where inspiration seems light years away, and when work feels like an uphill battle? On those days, most amateurs give up. They are easy weather workers. When the going gets tough, they tell themselves 100 excuses why it's okay to escape to Netflix, social media, or various other distractions. The pros, on the other hand, put in the work regardless of how they feel. They follow their schedule, even if the metaphorical weather is terrible. This makes them ultra consistent, which is why they perform at the top of their field. Okay? Second thing about why pros, the difference between pros and amateurs. The pros go deep. Amateurs go broad. The pros understand that mastery is the name of the game, and mastery can't be achieved when you go too broad. Success is all about becoming extraordinary at your craft. You need to focus deeply on just a handful of skills, sometimes even just one skill. You need to become so good that they can't ignore you, whether it's a marketplace, a book publisher, a coach, a teacher. You can't be ignored. And that requires focus and discipline. You can't just hop from idea to idea or from opportunity to opportunity. If you do, however, you're never going to develop the level of skill necessary to stand out in your field. Most amateurs tend to get distracted by every new opportunity, idea, or exciting piece of information. They suffer from the shiny object syndrome, which is the belief that the secret to success can be found in the next thing, the next idea, or the next piece of information. False belief. You need to develop the focus and discipline to really go deeply and become so good at your craft that you can't be ignored anymore. You don't need to do many things, many different things outstandingly, but you do need to do one or two really well. That's it. Eli, let me give you an example. If I told you that there was an NBA player that averaged 7.3 points per game throughout his whole career, and was voted into the Basketball Hall of Fame based upon his playing career. Would you believe me? Well, it's true. There's a gentleman, and I use the term loosely, named Dennis Rodman. He earned NBA All-Defensive First Team honors 7 times and won the NBA Defensive Player of the Year award twice. But he also led the NBA in rebounds per game for 7 consecutive years, and his teams won 5 NBA championships. Guy couldn't shoot. Well, he could, he was a pro, but I mean, as far as the pros were concerned, he didn't shoot at all. Hardly ever. If you got 10 points in the game, that was like a miracle. When he went to the foul line to take a shot, there were like 13,000 people sitting in prayer hoping that he would find the basket. I mean, he was not a good offensive player, but the guy was so good defensively, and one of the most important things in a game is to be able to rebound the ball. And that was his role with the Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls. He got the ball, Jordan scored the points. You've heard of Michael Jordan. Many people have not heard of Dennis Rodman. But he was a key figure on that team and other teams because he was able to excel in specific areas, defensively and rebounding. So, the first the things that we went over today, all right, we're going to go over 2 more the next time we get together. And because we're never going to end a meeting on a philosophical note, professionals never do. Let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.